All right, Bruce, let's go to work. It's cold out this morning. -8. -8 Celsius. Should qualify that in case you work on a Fahrenheit scale. So I want to talk about what, of course, everybody's talking about today. The kidnapping of a mentally disabled or special needs man in Detroit by 4 black people, where they kidnapped him, tied him up, tortured him, and I mean torture in the... I guess it's physical torture. I didn't watch the whole video. I only saw a few snippets because, frankly, I can't watch stuff like that. It makes me angry and makes me upset, and I just don't want to watch stuff like that. But I saw enough of it, to realize it qualifies as torture. They were physically threatening him, physically harming him. He suffered wounds that he needed treatment at a hospital for. So, torture. Forced him to say things like, fuck white people, fuck Donald Trump, forced him to drink from a toilet. And the thing that... There's a few things that I want to talk about. One, on Twitter, it's trending as the BLM kidnapping. Black Lives Matter kidnapping. Now, my understanding is that the person, Brittany Herring, or Brittany Covington, whatever name she goes by, on social media anyway, supports Black Lives Matter. That's not surprising. A lot of people support Black Lives Matter. Is she a member of the Black Lives Matter, movement? Is she an activist with Black Lives Matter? I don't know. The three other perpetrators in the crime, their names have not been released. I think some online investigators, amateur investigators online, have determined the identity of at least one of them. But I don't know. But anyway, people are calling this a Black Lives Matter kidnapping, trying to tie this crime to Black Lives Matter. Again, I haven't seen the video. I think in order for this to be considered a crime by Black Lives Matter, then somebody in the video needs to say Black Lives Matter, and they're doing it for Black Lives Matter. They're doing it in the name of Black Lives Matter. I don't know if the heads of Black Lives, the organizational heads of Black Lives Matter, if they've come out and disavowed this action or not. My guess is they probably have. This is the problem with hashtag movements. Black Lives Matter was a hashtag movement that then became sort of like a grassroots, on-the-street protest movement, and has actual people who are heads of the organization at this point. But the problem is, anybody who puts the hashtag on their profile is said to support Black Lives Matter, but they don't necessarily speak for the organization itself. But I guess it comes down to what's their motivation. If their motivation is, if this act has been inspired by a mindset that has been put forward by Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement, then this speaks to what kind of activity does BLM inspire. But that's not even the major point of it. I don't know that calling the BLM kidnapping serves any purpose other than to tarnish BLM. You want to know my thoughts on BLM? I don't think it's a legitimate movement. I think it's predicated on a lie. I think it's predicated on false data, and I think it's a grievance movement. It's a grievance movement that doesn't really have much to claim. And I know, that's not going to be surprising to some people. What do you know? A white guy doesn't like Black Lives Matter. It's not that I don't think Black Lives Matter, but I'm of the mind that yes, all lives matter, and to focus on one group of people is to separate them and say they matter more, or they should matter more than they do. I don't want to get into a whole rant about Black Lives Matter, and that's not the point of this. I want to talk about the kidnapping, and that's what it was. It was a kidnapping. It qualifies as kidnapping. They had him there for several hours, forcible confinement, abduction. Here's a special needs person, a white person, targeted. Now, and the thing that bothers me the most about this particular instance is that the Chicago PD have not decided whether or not they're going to investigate this as a hate crime or not. Now, a hate crime by definition is a crime, usually violent, where prejudice towards an ethnic group, or a sexual group, or gender group, or whatever, is a motivation. So, how this could not be a hate crime, just based on the evidence that everybody has seen, even the small bit that I've seen, is mind-blowing. First off, they either targeted the guy because he was white, or they targeted him because he's a member of the disabled community. Either way, it's a hate crime. So my guess is, my intuition tells me that they saw him, a disabled person, or a mentally disabled person, mentally handicapped person, special needs person, and realized he was an easy target. And then his racial group was probably a secondary part of that. My guess is they wanted to victimize him and felt that they could easily do so because he didn't have the mental faculties to not be manipulated or maneuvered into a vulnerable situation. And the fact that he was white was their reason for treating him the way they did. I don't think they would have done the same thing to a mentally disabled or special needs black person. I don't think they victimized him purely because he was special needs. But even if they had, that would still be considered a hate crime. So it's a hate crime one way or the other. Now, what do I think of hate crimes, though? I mean, the idea that somebody deserves a harsher sentence or a harsher punishment if they're found guilty of committing a crime where hate was a factor, it kind of confuses me. Forcible confinement, abduction, assault, these are all serious crimes in and of themselves. And I don't understand why belonging to a special group makes them more egregious. At the end of the day, an individual was harmed. His membership in a group is irrelevant. The only reason I can think for police wanting to investigate hate crimes is to see if there's a pattern and see if there is a conspiracy to commit more. Are these people part of a hate group? Now, some people say, well, Black Lives Matter is clearly a hate group. They're the black equivalent of the KKK. I mean, if anything, if any crime we're going to lend credence to that notion, this one would be it. Right? In the 1950s and 60s in the South, black people were routinely, I shouldn't say routinely, were repeatedly kidnapped, harassed, assaulted, tortured even, because they were black, by members of the KKK, by white people who belonged to a specific group, a specific hate group. Now again, this comes down to, what did they say in the video? Did they come out and say this is for Black Lives Matter? Probably not. But then, if a group of good old boys in the 1960s got together and decided to abduct a black kid, beat the shit out of him, torture him, threaten him, force him to do degrading things, would they be saying they're members of the KKK? Would they be announcing their membership while they did it? No. They might be doing it with masks on, but I guarantee you they wouldn't be wearing their full cowl. You know, the cowl and the cloak. They might be wearing like masks. They might be hiding their identity. But I doubt they would broadcast their membership in the KKK, because they realize that would affect other members. But to deny that this was a hate crime is just, or to even equivocate on it, says something about what the true meaning of a hate crime is. And that is, a hate crime is a violent crime motivated by prejudice towards an ethnic group or a person who's in the membership of the disabled community, or a person who is of non-cisgendered, non-white, non-marginalized, or marginalized, non-privileged, a disadvantaged group. If you're a member of a disadvantaged group and you've been targeted for a crime by members of a privileged group, then it's a hate crime. And you've been targeted. They have to prove, of course, that you've been targeted because of your membership in that group. Gay bashing's a hate crime. Straight bashing? No. Shooting up a school full of girls? Hate crime. Shooting a bunch of guys, if you're a girl, not a hate crime. I mean, I don't know. But this seems like the precedent that's being set. The fact that they're equivocating on the issue, the fact that they're going, oh, well, we're not sure if it's actually a hate crime or just a bunch of kids being stupid. I mean, I guess, you know what? That's the responsibility of the police department. That's the responsibility of the Justice Department to make that determination. You know, armchair lawyer here saying it is a hate crime. Who the hell am I, right? But one thing that I cannot stand, and you hear this from leftists a lot, well, that's just the pendulum swinging back the other way. You know, the same thing happened to black people back in the 1960s. Well, now we're coming full circle and the pendulum is, it's swinging the other way. Now white people are going to become the victims of discrimination. White people are going to become the victims of racially motivated crime. And that's just human nature. That's how things are going to be. Well, either it's bad or it's not. And either it was bad in the 1960s or it wasn't. So if you're saying that it's okay to do, as long as you're a member of a group at a certain time, then what are we talking about? Why are we bringing up the notion of hate crimes at all? Anyway, pulling it at work. That's my take on it. I think it's a sad, disgusting sort of statement on society that we've reached this point, that this kind of shit happens, and I hope these people are brought to justice. I hope they don't get a slap on the wrist, and I hope they don't get a slap on the wrist because, it would be considered social justice. It's a despicable act, made all the more despicable because this person's mentally disabled or a part of the special needs community. And what is so frustrating and irritating and makes me so angry is the fact that they FaceTimed it on Facebook. They, or whatever they call it. Is it FaceTime? I don't know what it is. They broadcast on Facebook Live, and they thought it was a joke. They're obviously proud of what they were doing because they thought, I can share this with everybody. And it's just disgusting that this is the level of interaction that goes on in the world now. And I mean, I could go into it about how the media is not covering it. I don't know if that's the fact. I have no idea. Last I checked, I saw that CNN had a few minutes on it. And of course, people are saying, well, you know, if it had been reversed, then there'd be wall-to-wall coverage and they wouldn't stop and there'd be riots and the media would be coming out in support of it. That may very well be true. But if we're going to be upset about the media sensationalizing events that happen and crimes that are committed and shootings that are committed against black people, if we're going to get upset about the sensational nature, the sensational approach that the media takes to that, then we should not wish that they take a sensational approach to this either. That doesn't help anybody. So I want measured coverage of it. And I want a realistic response and a just response by the Justice Department in Chicago. Or not Chicago. Was it Chicago or Detroit? I think it was Chicago. Chicago. Anyway, I'm at work now. I got to get to work. But those are my thoughts on it. Like and subscribe if you like this video. I've got a bunch of other ones. Follow me on Twitter at CraigBragg. My current name on Twitter is literally Putin. I have a Facebook page called Craig Bragg's Jimmy Wrestling Politics page. It's a public page, but you can check it out and ask to join. It's not a group, it's just a page. But one of my videos just hit 500 views, which is pretty crazy. I started making videos about a month ago, and I made one video, and for whatever reason, it hit 500 views. That's probably not a big deal to many big YouTube people, but to me, that's a pretty big deal. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the kidnapping. I'm not going to call it the BLM kidnapping because I think that's sensational, but I got to go to work, and thanks for watching. Bye.